Every economist agrees. Every government defends it. Every central bank in the world is built around it. Inflation, they say, is not just normal, it is necessary. It is healthy. It is the sign of a growing economy. And for decades, billions of people accepted this, went to work, paid their bills, watched their savings quietly shrink, and called it normal. This video is about what they never told you after that sentence, about what healthy inflation actually means for them, and what it actually costs you. Let's start with what they teach you. The official story, the version in every economics textbook from Harvard to your local university. Inflation is the gradual increase in the price of goods and services over time, and according to the official story, a small amount of inflation, around 2% per year, is not just acceptable, it is the target, the goal, the thing central banks spend billions managing toward. Why? 3 reasons they give you. First, inflation encourages spending. If you know your money will be worth slightly less next year, you spend it now, and spending drives the economy. Consumption is the engine. Inflation keeps the engine running. Second, inflation makes debt easier to repay. If you borrow $100,000 today and inflation runs at 2% per year, in 20 years, that debt is worth significantly less in real terms. Inflation is the invisible debt eraser. Good for borrowers, good for growth. Third, inflation prevents deflation, and deflation, falling prices, is presented as the true monster. If prices fall, people wait to buy, spending stops, businesses fail, the economy collapses. Japan's lost decade, the Great Depression, deflation did it. Inflation prevents it. Clean, logical, reasonable. This is the story. This is what they teach. This is what almost everyone believes. And almost every word of it is true, from a very specific angle. An angle that is never named. An angle that once you see it, you cannot unsee.
Whose economy? Here is the first crack. When economists say inflation is good for the economy, which economy are they talking about? The economy is not one thing. It is not a neutral system that benefits everyone equally. It is a collection of millions of individual financial positions, and inflation affects each of them differently, radically differently, depending on one variable. What do you own? If you own assets, property, stocks, businesses, commodities, inflation is extraordinary. When the price of everything rises, the value of everything you own rises with it. Your house goes from $300,000 to $400,000, not because it improved, but because the money measuring it became worthless. Your stock portfolio grows not necessarily because the companies got better, but because every dollar of earnings is now measured in cheaper dollars. Asset owners win every single time inflation runs. If you own nothing, if your wealth is held entirely in cash or in a salary, inflation is a tax, a silent, invisible, unvoted tax on everything you have. Your $50,000 in savings does not shrink on paper, the number stays the same, but every year that number buys less. The money does not disappear, its purchasing power does, quietly, constantly, without anyone's permission. Inflation is not good for the economy. Inflation is good for people who own assets in the economy. These 2 sentences sound similar. They are completely different.
The 2% lie. Now let's talk about the 2% target, the number every central bank in the world defends like a sacred figure. 2% sounds harmless, almost nothing, a rounding error. But here is what 2% annual inflation actually does over time. In 10 years, $100,000 in savings is worth $82,000 in real purchasing power. In 20 years, that same $100,000 is worth $67,000. In 35 years, the length of a working career, $100,000 becomes $50,000. Half gone. Not from spending, not from losing, from simply existing in a system designed to run at 2% inflation per year. The money that your parents saved, that you are saving right now, is being cut in half over the course of a working life, by design, by target, by policy.
And 2% is the target, not the ceiling. In 2021 and 2022, inflation in the United States hit 9.1%. In the UK, it hit 11.1%. In Turkey, it exceeded 80%. The same central banks that promised 2% printed trillions of dollars during COVID and watched inflation explode, then told you it was transitory, then told you they were surprised, then raised interest rates, which made your mortgage more expensive to fix the problem their printing created. The people whose asset values exploded during COVID inflation, the stock market, the real estate market, kept their gains. The people whose savings were eroded kept their losses. The system corrected, unevenly, as it always does.
The mechanism nobody explains. Here is the part that never appears in the textbook. How does inflation actually happen? Where does it come from? The simple answer: too much money chasing too few goods. When the supply of money grows faster than the supply of things to buy, prices rise. Basic supply and demand apply to money itself. So where does new money come from? Central banks, the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of England. These institutions create money, not by printing physical bills. That is a small fraction. By a process called open market operations, they buy assets, primarily government bonds, and in exchange credit the selling bank's account with newly created money, digits, typed into existence. In 2020 alone, the Federal Reserve created more new dollars than had been created in the entire 200-year history of the United States before 2020, combined. 1 year. This money does not appear in everyone's bank account equally. It enters the financial system through banks and financial institutions. It inflates asset prices first, stocks, bonds, real estate, before it filters down into consumer prices. By the time the inflation reaches your grocery bill, the people closest to the money creation have already captured the gains. Economists have a name for this: the Cantillon Effect, named after Richard Cantillon, an 18th century economist who described it in 1730. 300 years ago. It has been understood for 3 centuries. It is almost never mentioned in mainstream economic coverage because the people closest to money creation are the same people who fund the institutions that produce mainstream economic coverage.
What they call stability. Now here is the twist that reframes everything. The same system that produces inflation, that erodes your savings, that inflates asset prices for owners, that transfers wealth upward through the Cantillon effect, presents itself as the guardian of stability, of safety, of the responsible management of the economy. And in a narrow technical sense, it is. Hyperinflation is genuinely destructive. Zimbabwe, Weimar Germany, Venezuela. When inflation escapes control entirely, societies collapse. The central bank system, for all its structural inequities, does prevent the worst outcomes. But here is what stability means in practice. It means the current distribution of wealth is stable. The current gap between asset owners and non-asset owners is stable. The current mechanism by which savings erode and asset values rise is stable. Stability, in the language of central banking, means the system continues to function as designed. And the system was not designed for you. It was designed for the people who were in the room when it was designed. The Bretton Woods Conference in 1944, where the modern global financial architecture was built, was attended by 730 delegates from 44 nations. 0 of them were ordinary workers. 0 of them were savers without assets. The architecture of the system reflects the interests of the people who built it, as all architectures do.
So what do you do with this? First, understand that keeping money in cash is not saving. It is slow losing. Every year your cash sits in a low-interest account, inflation eats it. This is not bad luck. It is the designed function of the system. Knowing this changes the question from should I save to save in what form. Second, understand that the inflation hedge is assets. The same mechanism that punishes cash savers rewards asset holders. This is not a secret available only to the wealthy. Index funds, real estate, commodities, any asset that holds or grows its real value over time. The system is not fair, but it is consistent. It rewards the same things every cycle. Third,
Understand that your salary is the most inflation-vulnerable form of income that exists. A salary is fixed in nominal terms. It rises slowly, if at all, relative to asset prices. Building income streams that are not pure salary, not today, not immediately, but as a direction, is the only structural answer to a system designed to erode wage-based wealth. None of this is comfortable, none of it is quick, but it is real, and real is what this channel is for.
Inflation is good for the economy. They were telling the truth, just not the whole truth. Not whose economy, not which economy, not at whose expense. Now you know the whole sentence. What you do with it is yours. If this cracked something open, subscribe, because next we are going to show you the other side of this equation, the one asset class that has beaten inflation in every single economic cycle in recorded history, and why almost nobody owns it. Knocks out.